Well, I'm in part 2 of the lesson that we started on last week. We began to talk about, and I began to share about expectations, and I told you that I'm really talking about worship, but I'm going to get there. I'm just taking the long route. I'm normally not the long, elongated person. I'm very direct. My husband is the elongated person, but this time I'm going to take the long route to get there, okay? So, but today I want to finish up with, what do you expect from God? Because I had to take you from point A to point B. So, what do you expect from God? And this is part 2. On last week I shared how we all have expectations. Every one of us have expectations. We have expectations of ourselves. Some of us are so hard on ourselves, and we put these expectations on ourselves that sometimes are impossible to fulfill. We're not capable of fulfilling some of the expectations that we put on ourselves, and then when we don't do it or accomplish it and we let ourselves down, it just doesn't work. You know, we're disappointed. Our spouses, we put expectations on our spouses, on our significant others. Our family members, we have expectations of our family, of our parents, of different family members. We have expectations of our friends and peers and co-workers and teachers. We even have expectations of our government. You know, I've never seen such a time that I really feel like more expectation has been put on this current government than any other government that we've ever had. The things that people, the constituents, have expected this current government to do. Well, why don't he do this? Well, why don't he do that? Well, how come he don't go in and do this? And how come he don't go in and do that? When the previous government was in play, they never talked about why he didn't do this and why he didn't do that. But the expectation on this particular governmental government is so much greater than on our previous governments. Now, I'm not going to even go into the reasons why, because that's not my subject. But the expectations, we even put expectations on God, or we have expectations of God. Oftentimes we think of God as the genie in the bottle. And we rub the magic lamp, and the genie appears. And the genie produces what we expect. So we have expectations. Oftentimes, in the midst of people who say that they're atheists or agnostics, they have expectations of a higher power. You let something happen and they getting ready to all of a sudden die, they call God, they call on Jesus, they call, the atheists. Now, I talked last week and I shared with you more about our expectation that we put on our friends or our family or our spouses. But today I want to just kind of focus in on what do we expect from God. Now, these expectations, although known to us, are oftentimes unknown to the person that you put the expectation on. Because we don't always voice our expectations to others. We think they should just know. How many times have you heard someone say, well, I shouldn't have to tell them, they should just know? You know, as wives, we just expect our husbands to just know what we want them to do. Amen. They should just know. Why don't they know? Why should I, and he a grown man, why should I have to tell him what to do? Y'all never said those words out of your mouth. I know that. He grown. And then why do I have to keep telling him the same thing over and over? I know no one thinks like me. Thank God. We expect them to just know. We walk around, and then when they ask us, are you okay? What's going on? Nothing. But wait a minute. Here's our look. You okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Anything wrong? No, I'm fine. And then he go, oh, okay. Then you mad because he left. What do you mean you're just going to walk out the door and you see I'm going through? And then you're like, what do you mean you're going through? I just asked you if there was anything wrong. And then you call your girlfriend. Well, he should just know that I was having a bad day. He should just know that. Okay, you all have never had those experiences. Perhaps that's just me and the way, or we do things like the trash needs to be taken out and we're just sitting there waiting to see how long. And our expectation is, well, how long is this trash going to sit here? Now, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. You want the trash out by 8. They may not focus on the trash until 7 o'clock that evening. And you're upset all day because that trash has sat in the house all day, but your expectation was that he noticed the trash at 8 o'clock in the morning. You noticed the trash at 8. He didn't focus on the trash until 7 that evening. But your expectation was that he should have noticed. How could you not see the trash sitting right there in the trash can, overflowing? How are you going to trip over it? I'm trying to help you understand expectations, that we all have them. We all have them. All of us, no matter who we have expectations. Our job titles, whatever we do in life, there's expectations that come even with your job title. Your career choice. If you're a teacher, the expectation is that when I step into school, August, or whenever school begins, I expect you to teach me. I expect you to show up and be prepared to teach. Now, I don't expect to walk in, and then as parents, we have a different expectation than what the children have. If our children aren't learning at the level or the rate that we think that they should learn, guess what happens? We get upset because our expectation of you as a school, as an educator, is that they should be at this mile marker in their academia, and when they're not, then you're upset. Because why? You have expectations. Your expectation of your doctor. Because by the mere fact that he's a doctor. But here's the thing. A doctor only earned a degree, and he's practicing medicine. And yet we turn and put our faith in everything that he say and do, and then if he misses it, then we're ready to kill him and sue him. Well, actually sue him and then maybe kill him. Why? Because our expectation is that the doctor should not miss it. He should not be wrong. Because he's a doctor. He's gone to school for how many years to learn this stuff? But you got to remember, he's only practicing medicine, and he's going to go and read a book just like you can read. And he's going to try something that may not work with your body, but perhaps worked on his last patient. He's practicing medicine. But our expectation of our parents is that every time they need something, I don't care if they're 45 or 55. 25, 15. Every time the children need something, the expectation is that what? Parents should be there. What do you mean you ain't? What do you mean you can't loan me any money? What do you mean you don't have it? Well, I don't understand that. You've always had it. You know, I don't get that. Why? Because the expectation that children place on as a parent, is that we are the provider. We are there for them no matter what. We should bail them out of whatever trouble they're in. We should, no matter what they do, we should always be there to support. We should, we had a classic example of that. We celebrated 4th of July on Sunday, and my husband barbecued, but one of our sons couldn't make it, so he came over on Monday. And so he came over, and in the process of hanging out and whatever, his car wouldn't start when he got prepared to leave, and he needed cables. And so my husband said, "Well, I think it's the cable, the battery." And he needed cables. Well, we didn't have any, and so we said, "Go." He said, "Go." My husband said, "Well, go across the street to the neighbor's house. You've been over there before because they have these massive 4th of July parties, and you've been over there before, watch fireworks, da-da-da-da-da. You kind of know them. You don't know them intimately, but you know them." And I saw this look on his face when my husband said it. Now, this is our 41-year-old son. And this look on his face was, I don't know, I don't want to go over there by myself. And so I said to my husband, I said, "Hon, I think you need to go, you should go over there because he don't know him that well." And my husband gave me this look, and I knew what that look was. But he did it. He got up and went. And sure enough, they had cables. My husband worked with him, took his car, got him set, and he left. So the very next day, my husband get this text, and he sends it to me, and he says, "Dad, thank you for helping me, with, the car, da-da-da-da-da. I really appreciate it. And tell Mimi thanks for being very sensitive to see that I needed, Dad, you to go with me." And so I was in shock that we got the text. But here's the thing, what I'm saying, at 41 years old, you would think he could have, you understand, you could have do it yourself. But what was the expectation? Dad, I needed Dad to help me. The expectation is that Dad knows them better than I know them, so I need Dad to come with me. Expectations. Had Dad not done that, guess what he would have left once he got his car fixed? We would have left feeling disappointed, rejected, and abandoned by Dad because, once again, Dad failed to fulfill his expectations. I'm just trying to help you see that no matter what age you are, we all still place expectations upon our parents or upon people, period. No matter how old. So then, most relationships fail not because you don't love the person, not because they're not a good person, or all of these other things, or not even because of lack of communication, as we've so said in marriages, that most relationships fail in a marriage because of communication. You can communicate all day, but if you don't communicate in a way that helps you meet your expectations, then your relationship is doomed for failure. So most relationships fail because of unmet expectations. Newsflash. No one is a mind reader, not even the prophet. No one knows what you need all the time. No one. No one. People come to church, and I'm going to move on from this, and people come to church and they expect the pastor to know what they need. They expect the pastor to fulfill all of their expectations. They expect the church to fulfill all of their expectations. Because why? Because now we have made the church to be something greater than what it was purposed to be. The church has now become a social organization, not a church that fills your spiritual need only, but it is a social organization. So if I go into a church and that church doesn't have a singles ministry, a young adults ministry, a youth ministry, a kids ministry, a seniors ministry, a ministry for the paraplegic, a ministry for this and a ministry for that, every need that's out there in the world, we expect it to be in here. And so when I come in and I have a need, if my kid has autism, there should be an autistic ministry. If my kid has, if this is going on, well, why don't y'all provide some kind of a learning after school tutorial programs for kids who are struggling? And yet, get this, you have all of these organizations out here in the world that is set up for that, but we want to take the church and make it a social organization instead of what it was designed by God to be. And because that's the mindset of people, that's the mindset of how we operate. If it's not fulfilling that need and you have an unmet expectation, then you leave and you go shop another church. Forget the fact that you come and you say things like, I know God put me here for a reason. I'm not going to stay there. I'm moving on. Okay? So what is expectation? Expectation is a belief that something will happen or is likely to happen. It is a feeling or a belief about how successful, how good someone or something will be. It is the act or state of looking forward or anticipating. But but here's some synonyms for expectation. Expectancy, anticipation, hope, and trust. Those are synonyms of the word expectation. But to expect something means that there is a strong possibility, even a certainty, that the event or the thing is going to happen. It is a strong possibility, even a certainty, that the event or the thing is going to happen. That's why you're so disappointed when it doesn't happen, because when you expect something, it is such a strong possibility. You're almost sure. You're so certain that that thing is going to happen. And when it doesn't happen the way you expected it to happen, then you're disappointed because you didn't get what you expected. See, I expected my husband to love me, and I expected my husband to take care of me in a certain manner. I expected my wife to provide certain things for me. And if your paradigm is that you saw your mother if he grew up seeing his mother bring the food to the table, cook the food, and then fix daddy's plate and put it on the table, but then you marry a wife, number one, she can't cook, and then number two, even when she attempt to cook, she say dinner's ready, and she leave and go in the other room. What is your expectancy? Your expectancy is what you saw from your paradigm of growing up, of what mama did for daddy, what he saw mama did for daddy, and then when he's not getting that, his expectation is, why is she not cooking and bringing the food to the table and serving me like my mama did for my daddy? Well, guess what? You didn't talk about you didn't discuss that up front. You just expected that that's how every household operated. Newsflash, every household in America and in the world does not operate the same way. I didn't grow up with your paradigm, and you didn't grow up with mine. And then you say something like, well, she should just know. No, she don't just know. Because in her household, she grew up in a single-family household where they didn't even eat together. Mama would cook something, and then she gone in the room, and then they didn't even eat together, and so the kids just went in and fend for themselves, and so she never grew up seeing mama serve daddy. That's not a paradigm. That's not a paradigm. She's only operating out of her paradigm. But you didn't discuss that. So expectations is dashed. So let's look at the word, because I told you hope was a synonym of expectation, right? And although hope is a synonym of expectation, however, hope is something which has no certainty of fulfillment. There's no guarantee with hope. You know, I heard people say, well, I kind of hope that it comes, if it happens, I'm hoping that this comes about. I'm hoping that I get this job. With hope, you don't put a certainty on it. With hope doesn't carry, even though it's a synonym, but it still doesn't carry the same weight as an expectancy. Hope kind of leaves it out there in a limbo area that it might happen. But an expectation means that it's certainly going to happen. You expect it to happen this way. Okay? Now to hope is to have a wish to get or do something, for something to happen or be true. It's a wish to get something, and I'm taking this out of the dictionary, to get something, to get or do something, or for something to happen or be true, especially something that seems possible or likely. I hope I get that job. It's a possibility. It's a possibility. I hope I get that job. But now here's this. When you talk to the HR person and they say, well, we're leaning very heavily, we're looking at two people, but we're leaning very heavily toward you. It changes from hope to expectation. Because now you kind of have a word on it, right? That I'm leaning toward you. So there's an expectancy now that you didn't carry at first. So then where does this expectancy or this belief emanate from? It's developed in you based on several sources. Your expectation is developed in you based on what you see. So your paradigm, what you grew up with, what you've seen, what you hear, songs or television or various things, even if you grew up, like I said last week, and grew up in church and you heard songs like Jesus will fix it after a while, or climbing up the rough side, because expectancy can be good or bad. See, climbing up the rough side of the mountain. So remember that song, for those of kind of a little older, I'm climbing up the rough side of the mountain. Okay, so we grew up hearing that song, and guess what we thought? We had to climb the rough side of the mountain to get to see Jesus. So we were always spending so much time climbing, and we were doing very little confessing and believing. We were climbing. It was always a climb up the rough side. It was never a climb. It was never in your life that there was an expectancy that there was going to be good things happen, because it always had to be a climb up the rough side of the mountain. Because that was what we heard. That was what shaped us. That was what our paradigm was. I told you, I grew up in the Leave It to Beaver era, watching television, and that was my idyllic family. The Leave It to Beaver. You said, are you serious? Yeah, the only problem I had was June Cleaver always cooked in heels and a dress, and she looked so perfect cooking. I tried that one time. Oh my God, y'all should have seen how I looked. I looked a hot mess after I had food all over me and had stuff everywhere. And I'm like, how do you cook in heels and a dress and pearls? She always wore pearls. She always wore pearls. And they had the pretty house, and it was always perfect. Nothing was ever out of place in her house. Try that with 2 kids. I remember crying one time, calling my girlfriend, and I was crying because she had not had any kids, and it was just her and her husband. And here I had 2 kids, and it's like I spent all day cooking, cleaning, washing, and cleaning up behind kids. And then as soon as I finished that, I'm cooking, cleaning, washing. I finished breakfast, and then there's lunch. Finish lunch, and then there's dinner. I spent the entire day straightening and mopping and washing and cleaning up and trying to make my house look like the perfect house. I had to have the lines in the carpet, and then as soon as them daggone kids got on the floor, they messed up my lines. Then I got to vacuum back, and I'm vacuuming 2 and 3 times a day, because why? I need to have lines in my carpet all day long. Expectation. I was trying to be this perfect wife, this perfect mother. And I remember calling my girlfriend. I said, every time I come to your house, it's always so clean. And you don't never have stuff all over the place. I got blankets, I got diapers, I got this, I got that. And she said, you have kids. I don't have children. I said, there's toys everywhere. Every time I look, I'm throwing them daggone toys away, And she says, but you have kids. I don't care. I don't care I have kids. I want my house perfect. I want lines in my carpet. Okay? I had issues. I had issues. Where did I get it from? Because of what I saw. My expectation of what adulthood would be like. And what having a house and how to be. And then I had to change. I had to lower those expectations because it was so unrealistic. Okay? So then here, your environment is also, you get expectations from your environment. It creates expectations. Have you ever been and remember I said expectations can be good or bad. Have you ever talked or heard people who grew up in a bad environment or on television, I just grew up in the hood. I'm going to always be in the hood. It's going to always be hood. Their environment. I don't know, my mama lived here in the projects, my grandmama lived in the projects, and I'm going to live here in the projects. Expectation. And so you cannot have an expectation greater than your environment if you don't change. Family members. You develop an expectation from your family members, from your peers as well. So there are a myriad of expectations. But I'm only going to talk about deal with four. One, we have unrealistic expectations. Some of us, like I was talking about, keeping the lines in the carpet all the time with kids in the house. That's unrealistic. Assumed expectations. Assumed expectations is what I assume you know what I need. You assume something, but it's never been discussed. You assume that she's going to be this way. You assume that he's going to be that way. You assume that your professor is going to operate this way because the last professor you had. Unmet expectations. Unmet simply means that you have expectations that cannot be met by anyone. You expect your wife to go to work, come home, cook, have dinner on the table, take care of the kids, then put on a pretty little negligee and be ready. Unmet expectation. Those are not only unmet, they're unrealistic. They're a combination, assumed, unrealistic, unmet, and the last one, unfulfilled. They all four all wrapped up in one. Because let me tell you something, this younger generation, you lucky, you better thank God she going to work. And then to come home and think she gonna cook, clean up, wash the dishes, take care of the kids, and put on a pretty negligee. Baby, that's all four wrapped up in one that you ain't getting. And so you better learn to adjust some expectations, Or you expect, unrealistic expectations. You expect because when you married her, she was fine. She had it all. Now after 15 years of marriage and 3 babies later, she got a whole bunch of stuff. She got it really all. And your frame of reference is still when you married her. Or your frame of reference is when you married him, when he was working out in the gym and he was buff and he had this and, brother man had it kind of going on, and then all of a sudden, age settled in and stuff began to spread around the midsection and, and the muscles started to atrophy and they didn't pop like they used to pop. And then you're looking at that time, and I married that. Because you're still expecting him to look like he looked when he was 25. Brother man is 55. It's a whole different ball game now. So then we talked about we mentioned the four types of expectations that we have. But last week we looked at what the Jews expected of Jesus and why they were disappointed. Even they put expectations on Jesus of what they expected him. So get the tape and the CD or the DVD and you'll be able to hear that. So yes, there were expectations placed on Jesus, and just like us, he failed to meet the expectations of the people. And they abandoned him. They persecuted him and eventually killed him for it. They abandoned him. So don't feel bad when you are abandoned, persecuted. We just pray they don't kill you for it. But if you look at the news, isn't that why family members are killing each other? Wife killing the husband or killing the kids because she was disappointed because her husband failed her. There were some unfulfilled or unmet expectations, and she didn't get what she wanted, so to punish the husband, she killed their 2 daughters. That's insanity. That's insanity. So I ask the question, what are your expectations of God? Most of us enter into a relationship with God, and most of us don't even think of it as a relationship, but it is. When we enter into a relationship with God, we come with our own set of expectations. Some of us don't come with any expectations because we don't know what to expect. But then there are others of us that come because we've been churched or we've been around church. You know how they'll say stuff to you. Let me put God aside for a minute. You know how they'll say, and you call yourself a Christian. Because why? There's an expectation that Christians are to behave differently. Now, I can cuss you out, but you can't cuss me back because you're a Christian. You're a Christian. I can talk bad about you. And then, some of them take that scripture out of context about if I slap you on one cheek, you turn the other cheek. That's really out of context. Because if you slap me, I'm going to bless you. We're going to have a blessing party. No, I'm just kidding. But here's the thing. I heard, how many of you have grown up hearing that? I heard that years ago where people say, well, you're a Christian. But that don't give you the right to abuse me. See? So the expectation of even us as believers from the world. So the world, and not only us, when we come into the kingdom, when we get saved, when we come in, when we develop a relationship with God, we come in, some of us, we come with this list of expectations of what God is to do. And just as I said earlier, we think God is the genie in the bottle. Let me just rub God every time I have a problem and he gonna fix it. Let me, every time something happened in my life, even if I created the mess, he gonna get me out of it. I should never have to endure hardship. I should never have to be sick. I should never have to be without. I should never have to be sad or hurt or lonely or disappointed or rejected. And then we say things like when God doesn't meet our expectations, we say things like that. I was better off when I was in the world. When I wasn't saved, I didn't have this many problems. Yes, you did. You had this many problems and you had more. But the situation is that you expect God to be your genie in the bottle. Okay, so let's look at, if you're healed, do you expect to be healed? Do you expect healing? See, most of us We don't expect healing because we are conditioned to reach for the prescription medication. The reason why you cannot get healed of whatever ails you is because you started reaching for the Tylenol at 10 years old, at 5 years old. Your parents started giving you medication. And so you are conditioned now at 35 that if something ails you, you reach for the pain meds. You reach for this. Am I telling you don't take the pain meds? Am I telling you don't take the prescription medication? No. But what I am telling you is that why believe God and expect God to heal you if you're conditioned to use the medication? So I don't have to have an expectancy to be healed. Although I say out of my mouth, I believe God, I want God to heal me, but I don't place an expectancy on God to heal me. Do you expect all your needs to be met? You say that, but you really don't expect your needs to be met. Because if you expected your needs to be met, you would operate differently than the way you operate. You see, if you've never been put in a position where you don't have, you've never been put in a position to expect God. So there is no expectation. So when you run up against that time and life happens to you and you run up against where you have a need and you can't fix it, you don't know what to do. And so you because you've always been able to be self-sufficient. Do you expect God to punish you when you mess up? You see, if you have an expectancy that if I mess up, God punishes me, God puts me on and he's not going to talk to me, and I'm in the doghouse with God because I look at God the way I look at my parents, and when I messed up with my parents, they punished me, then I would never understand a forgiving God. I would never understand that God loves me no matter what I do, and there's nothing that I could ever do in life that would stop him from loving me. My expectancy is God is not going to forgive me. My expectancy is God is not going to be there for me. My expectancy, because why? Because when I messed up with my parents, what did they do? Do you expect blessings or cursings? What do you expect when you pray? Everything hinges on your expectations. Now I'm going to talk about some key components to expectation. Number one, the most vital key between believing and manifestation is expectation. The most vital key between believing and manifestation is expectation. Mark 11:23 says, "For verily I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, be thou cast in the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he says shall come to pass, he shall have whatever he saith." 24, "Therefore, I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when you pray, believe, expect, and receive the manifestation." Turn to the next slide for me, please. I want them to see this next slide. I did a little turn. Believe, housed between believe is expectation. I'm sorry, you can't see this one as well. And on this side is manifestation. Pastor Warren, can I see you, please? Jay, can I see you? Yeah. So here's believe over here. Let's just stand right here. Jay, you come down here. This is what I'm believing. This is manifestation. So here I am. I believe God for healing. I need to be healed. I desire to be healed. And so I pray according to Mark 11:23 and 24. I pray and I expect God. I believe God. And so when I pray, I believe God that he's going to heal me. So at the point of prayer, at the point that I prayed and believed, I already had it here. At the point that I believed and believed that I was healed, I already had healing already standing here waiting for me to get to it. God didn't have to produce healing. It was already produced. I already received it. I received healing here. At the point that I prayed and believed that I received, healing was already done. Healing is right there waiting on me. The problem is I can't see healing.
Well, yes.
The problem is it's in my future in manifestation, but it's already done in my present.
That's good. That's good.
See, healing, whatever you're believing God for at the point that you prayed and believed that you received, it was already done. It was already produced. God didn't have to go make it. God didn't have to do anything. It was already in your future.
All right.
But the problem with it being in my future is that I need it in my present. The problem with it being in my future is that I can't see my future, but God knows my future before he even created my present.
That's right.
And so the future is just as real to God and is as real to us, or should be as real to us as our present is. The problem comes in is that we don't understand that our future is real. It is already done. And so we have this thing in between called expectation. And so I've got to now walk out in expectation to get to the manifestation of what's already been done. Now that presents a little problem for me, because in the process of walking out my expectation, I'm going to have some obstacles that's going to try to stop me from getting and embracing my manifestation. But my expectation, you see, it's not just about hoping and a wishing and a believing that I'm going to get it. It has got to be a certainty that if I prayed and believed that I received, it is already done.
That's right, yes.
But most of us, we keep we hoping and a praying and a wishing, and so when we get somewhere in the middle and it doesn't seem to be working out for our good, we abandon the mission. We abandon our expectation. We let go of our expectation. Why? Because we can't see it. We can't touch it. We can't feel it. We can't taste it. See, we want to see it with our natural senses. But there's nothing natural about expectation. And so we keep trying to bridge this gap. But it's in this gap of expectation that we've got to be developed and cultivated before we see the manifestation. Can y'all give our two people, thank you guys, a hand for helping out? I hope you guys are getting this. Okay? Number 2, expectations that are not voiced are like having no expectations at all. Psalms 5:3 says, "In the morning, Lord, you heard my voice. In the morning I lay my requests before you and waited expectantly." You can't just think of it and gonna think your way into it. You gotta voice it. You say, that's just like me telling my husband that in my mind I expected him to take me out for our anniversary to a 5-star restaurant or to this particular restaurant, but I never voiced it. I never told him. But my expectancy was that I wanted to get dressed up, and I wanted to go to this particular, I really wanted to be a special evening, and I expected him to bring, roses, and I expected him to bring, some kind of a gift, and we were going to have a fine dining experience and go out, but I never told him. And so I said, when he said something to me like, baby, what do you want to do for the anniversary? Well, whatever you want to do, I'm fine. So then anniversary shows up. He buy tickets to the Rockets game. And then your fine dinner is a hot dog at the concession stand. You ticked off. And he told me, what? What you upset about? Well, what's wrong? Well, I don't even know why you're mad. I took you out, didn't I? I took you out. Well, what you upset about? Well, here's the problem. You never voiced your expectations. You never said to him, this is what I expect of you to do for our anniversary. So then he did what he thought would be good, because that's what he wanted to do. It's kind of like we have this ongoing battle in my husband and I. Friday is our date day. So we're going to go to the movies, and we're going to go out to eat. We're going to either eat Mexican food. Every now and then we may get some Chinese thrown in there. Saturday is Fuddruckers Day. Fuddruckers and Fuddruckers. That's hamburgers and Fuddruckers. Okay? So, the other week, he said, we're going to the movies, as usual. So I just got all upset. Every Friday is the same thing. Can we get some air, you guys? Every Friday is the same thing. We go to the movies. And no, I didn't say it that nice. I really didn't say it that nice. You are so predictable. You're just so predictable. Every week it's the same thing. You just don't even change. Well, guess what? My expectation was that he was also going to get a revelation and change and say, hey, let's go do something else other than go to the movies and not eat Mexican food. My husband could eat Mexican food 7 days a week. Okay, he loves Mexican food. And so I'm waiting on this revelation, and so when the revelation don't come, then I get upset, and I say, you're just so predictable. Every week it's the same thing. I'm all upset, I'm all mad, because why? My expectation is I wanted him to change. And I wanted him to see that after doing this every week, year after year, month after month, week after week, that it becomes mundane. And guess what? He still likes it. He can do it for the rest of his life. And he's okay with that. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with him? Is there something terribly wrong with his thinking? That going to the movies every Friday, and even the grandkids are like, what you do this Friday? What you do today, Mimi? You went to the movies, huh? What you go see? And I'm like, just shut up, leave me alone. Just leave me alone. I mean, even the grandkids who are not even like 8 and 9 and 10, they mock me. You went to the movies, huh? Every week. So here's the thing. So I finally said, hon, we used to do other things other than go to the movies. Well, how do I know what you want to do? So I said, okay, you're right. So I used to create other things to do when the kids were younger. When the girls were younger, we would have our family night out, and then so I'd create family nights out, and then I'd create, this. But then, we've been married for 23 years, and so then finally you get to the place where you say, I'm not create nothing anymore. He didn't have a pattern, he should just change, right? Well, that's not how men operate. You want them to just change because you've provided a pattern, but men don't think like us. Remember women?
That's right.
So I had to say, okay, if I want something different on a Friday, I've got to go find it and create it. And I've got to go back to doing it. And he says, I'm open for it, but you're going to have to do if you do it. So now, Pastor Jeff, the other ongoing thing is, what do you want to eat? And I said, well, whatever you want to eat. Then he suggests Mexican. I ain't eating Mexican today. I'm tired of eating Mexican. Every time we always got to eat Mexican. I ain't eating no more Mexican this week. I done went off over Mexican food. I done just lost my mind and went off because he suggested we eat Mexican food. Well, I said whatever you want. But I expected him to come back with something different. Then he gave me two options. Well, option number one, we can go Mexican. Option number two, we can go Fuddruckers. So I had to learn. I had to voice my expectation. And I can't get offended and upset when he gives me something other than what I expected if I don't voice my expectation. James 4:2 says, you desire and you don't have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because what? You do not ask. You do not voice. Number 3, and I got to hurry up. Where there is no expectation, there can be no manifestation.
Yes.
Well, just whatever you want to do. Whatever you want. Psalm 65:2 says, my soul, wait thou only upon God, for my expectation is from him. My expectation is from God. Number 4, when expectation is delayed for a long period of time, sickness will manifest. Proverbs 13:12 says, hope deferred or expectation deferred or delayed makes the heart sick. But a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. I have met women who have waited to be married and have kids. And it breaks my heart because of the expectation, number one, of what they wanted. And so in their younger years, they turned down what they had or what was in front of them because it didn't meet the ideal. And now they're in their 40s or 50s and have never been married or are waiting, and they are sick. They are disappointed. They are dejected. They are and just hurt. You could just feel it. You could just sense it. You could see it on them. Why? Because they thought that by this time in their life they would be married. And the delay has caused a problem. And it will manifest in your body. A lot of times, sickness in your body, in your emotions, is not a result of a physical illness. It is a result of hope deferred, delayed expectation. Where do you think depression comes from? Delayed expectations. You don't get depressed because of what you got. You get depressed because of what you expected to get and didn't receive. Where there is no expectation, when expectation is delayed, sickness will manifest. Number 5, you do not expect something you can see in manifestation. Romans 8:24, For in this expectation we were saved. Now I bolded these. If it's bolded, it means that I changed the word hope and I put in expectation, okay? So that's not scriptural. You're not going to see that in the scripture. But I talked about the synonym, that hope and expectation, okay? So, for in this expectation we were saved. Now, expectation that is seen is not expectation. For who expects what he sees? If you see it, it's not expectation. Once you see it, it's manifestation. 8:25. But if we expect what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the assurance of things expected for and the conviction of what you don't see. Faith is the assurance that you got what you expect. Faith is the assurance that you have what you expect. Faith is the assurance that you have what you expect. Go with me. Come on. Faith is the assurance that you have what you expect. Again, faith is the assurance, now make it personal, that I have what I expect. What do you expect? Faith is the assurance. Faith is the guarantee that I have what I expected to get. And number 6, expectation must remain within the framework of God's word in order to be fulfilled. Romans 15:4, so whatever was written in former days was written for our instructions, that through endurance and through the encouragement of the scriptures, we may have expectations. You cannot have an expectation that is outside of the framework of God's word. For example, you cannot have an expectation that God's going to rain money down from heaven. That is not in the framework of God's word. You cannot have an expectation that God's going to grow a money tree in your backyard. That is not in the framework of God's word. You cannot have an expectation beyond the framework of God's word. Here's why people get disappointed and leave God, because they don't know the word of God, and so therefore their expectations become unrealistic, and then they become unmet, and then they leave the God and they backslide because they don't understand God, because they don't understand God's word. You see, if your expectation is that when you came into the kingdom of God, when you came into the church, when you got saved, that you would never have to suffer, then that is unrealistic expectations, because my Bible says that in this present age, in this time, you will suffer tribulation. But be of good courage, for I have overcome the world. But most of us come in and we think by getting saved, we done already got some fire insurance, that we're not going to have to go through anything. We should never have hard times, that it's going to always be kumbaya, my Lord, kumbaya. Well, I got good news for you. It doesn't work like that. Our expectations, if we don't know the framework of the boundary of God's word, we believe we can come in and we can tip God $2 and $5 and say that we gave, and then expect God to, and then when the man of God says, for all of you that is believing God and you need finances, you're the first one up here in line for prayer and asking God to meet your needs and to bless you, and then we say, well, are you a tither? Yes. Lying? You know you made more than $20 this week. You gave $2 in offering. Oh, you want me to make it cute for you? You want me to make you feel good about it? I don't do that. That's not my assignment. That's not my assignment. My assignment is to preach the word of God with truth and revelation. You cannot expect the blessings of the Lord that make it rich and addeth no sorrow, and you won't sow your seed. You cannot expect God to supply all to pay your tithes, and you won't do it, but yet you expect God to do everything. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that for the pastors. It doesn't work like that for the leaders. It doesn't work like that in the kingdom. A farmer cannot expect a harvest if he don't plant some seeds. How can a farmer keep going out to the farm every day and say, where is my corn? I know I should be having corn. I had corn last year, but I don't know where the corn is. Well, Bubba, because at the time that you should have been planting corn, you was out doing something else and sleeping, or you didn't plant seed and you have no seed in the ground, but yet you expect a harvest. You are a fool. It's the same thing in the kingdom. You plant no seed. You sow into nobody but yourself. You help no. You say, well, I don't have money. Well, what do you have? You have gifts. You have talents. The woman said, the woman that Jesus dealt with that gave her 2 bits. All she had was that. But she gave greater than anybody else and the rich people. And he said, she has given more. Why? Because she gave her last.
That's right. That's right.
You have no seed in the ground. So therefore, if there is no seed, there cannot be a harvest. But if you don't know the word, if you don't know how the word operates, then you'll accuse God. Because when you had that need, he didn't meet it. And when he didn't meet that need, then guess what happened? You're disappointed. And you accuse God. I tried church. That's what you did. You just tried. I tried church. And God didn't come through. I tried this faith thing. And God didn't show up. I tried this. See, you were just trying. You weren't walking it. Trying and walking is 2 different things. We walk by faith and not by sight. We don't try faith. Faith is not something you put on today and take off this afternoon. Faith is not something you try one time and if it doesn't work, you give up. We have to walk. It's a lifestyle. Faith is something you walk every day, 24/7, 7 days a week. It is something you walk in, and as you continue to walk in it, you continue to develop in faith. You continue to grow in faith. Your expectancy in God continues to increase. Why? Because it is a lifestyle. It is not something that I started 30 years ago, and now that I'm expecting God, I shouldn't have to walk by faith any longer because I've been saved for now over 30 years. It is not that. In fact, the longer you've been saved, and I know the seniors, and you can attest to this, the longer you've been saved, the greater the walk, the greater the expectancy, the greater you have to press into God. You know, the longer you've been saved, the greater the fight, the greater the push, the greater the expectancy. The longer you've been saved, it becomes even now a push into the things of the kingdom like never before. Why? Because God does not treat you like you are a baby anymore. You're no longer on milk. You're on strong meat, and you gotta, and when you are strong meat, you gotta grab hold of that stuff, and you gotta have some good teeth when you go strong meat. When you chewing some strong meat, it's like our African brothers and sisters. They like tough meat. They don't like that soft, tender meat. We want our steaks to be tender, that when we cut through it, it slides like butter. But they like that tough meat. They like it to be hard, where they can chew on it, where they can grab it and make a bite on it. But see, we don't want it hard. We want it tender. We want it easy. And then God dealt with you like that when you were a baby in him. But you are no longer a baby in him. You've been saved 5, 10, 20, 30 years. You are no longer on pava, on milk. You are now on meat, and it's time to have a greater expectancy. So when you come up against hard things in life, when you come up against things that didn't move like they used to move when you was 5 years or a year saved, like you can just believe God and it all of a sudden happen. When you believe now and it don't happen right away, you pray and it just don't happen right away. You got to actually walk through something. You got to actually stand on the word. You got to actually quote the word. You got to actually fight for yourself. You can't go to the pastor. You can't come up here in front and say, just pray for me, lay hands on me, let me Doesn't happen like that anymore.
Jehovah Rapha.
Because God expects more.
And he's Jehovah Shalom.
God has expectations of us the same way we have expectations of him. And so next week,
He's right here with us. Would you give him a big
I'll come back and I'll talk about
and say,
the expectations that God have of us. I'll talk about, and I'll begin to help you understand that this isn't a one-way relationship. You do all the expectancy from God and you do all the getting. But God doesn't have any expectations of us. What kind of a relationship is that? Where it's all in your favor. Stand to your feet.